We're live! Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Gravity Max live stream. This is episode 9 of season 2, which we've come quite a long way. And it is now March 2020, which is pretty crazy, right? That's
March
fast.
is a pretty off-the-hook month.
Right? We're already a sixth.
Lots of notable holidays.
Yep. We're already
such as
St. Patrick's Day, right? Yeah.
St. Patrick's Day.
We're already a sixth of the way through the year. So today I am with my co-host Sebastian and our friend Camilla, who has been on stream before. She is missing music in the comments, and she was on episode 10 last season. So welcome to the stream.
Hi, I'm back.
Yep. So we've
good to be here.
Yep. Yeah, of course. It's good to have you here. We have a fun topic today. We are talking about the brain, which is an interesting subject because, I don't know, it just is. Let's get started. The brain is studying itself. That's what we're doing today. The brain is studying itself today because we are all piloted by brains. Anyways, so this video is not intended for children under 13 years old. If you are under 13 years old, please do not watch this video, as the topics we discuss are meant for those with at least a high school level of education. If you are not 13, you will not understand the scientific topics discussed in this video. So, if you're 13,
unfortunately, the FTC people do not have a...
Yeah, but don't worry, right? Here's a great idea, a great coming-of-age tradition. When you turn 13 years old on your birthday, you should just binge all of the Gravity Max live streams. I mean, why not? What else are you going to be doing? Celebrating with your family? Psh, yeah, no. Just wait until you're 13 years old. Then on your 13th birthday, you can watch back all our videos because they're still on our channel.
Who needs a birthday cake when you have the Gravity Max live stream?
Exactly, right? We have over 40 hours. I know season 1 alone is 40 hours, so... You know, that's more than any typical TV show, like 30-minute TV show that goes on for a handful of seasons. Doesn't have 40 hours of footage. So.
I fell out of a tree for my 13th birthday.
That's fun.
I was trying to remember. I was like, what did I do for my 13th birthday? And I just vividly remember me falling out of the tree and nothing else.
Yeah, you can make that a tradition every year. Fall out of a tree.
Every year I just climb up the tallest tree that I see and I just go.
Yeah.
Oh, don't break anything, though.
My bones are unbreakable. I drink so much milk that I would literally bounce off concrete.
Oh, yeah. I also...
Max, what did you do for your
my 13th birthday... Let's see. Okay. I remember everyone was making a big deal of, 13, just because, teenager or whatever. And I was specifically, anti that, so I was just I want it to be the most non-birthday birthday, just to be counterculture or whatever. So I don't know what I did. I probably went to my favorite lunch place or something stupid like that. Now I have birthdays that are medium boring. They're not completely boring. They are medium boring. So not very exciting, but they are enjoyable. So, yeah. Also, last week, when I was a little bit sick on stream, it turned out that I had the flu. So that was fun this week. That was fun all week. I had the flu. This is for anyone at my school who might be wondering, where I was all week. I had the flu. So if you're watching this stream and you go to my school, that's where I was. Anyways, we already have chat. We have Jan McCarthy 1975, Smiley Face, live time. Yep, we share your enthusiasm. The best time of the week, 5 p.m. on Sundays. Okay, so yeah, let's get to the plugs. Visit the Gravity Max website at, sites.google.com. We've got some fun website stuff. We have a preview to my book. It's a little bit of the first chapter. It's, I think, 6 pages or something. So you can go read that, and it'll maybe entice you to actually buy the book. So that'll be cool. We also have...
Book is fire, bro.
Yep.
Book is fire.
Thank you. And I'm already working on the next one. Already on page 162 of the second book. So that's fun. Making lots of progress. Yeah. So also check out the Gravity Max Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, where we have updates and I talk about the live stream. I talk about videos that we upload, just reminders so that you know that we are going to be live. Which, yeah, this week, since I was sick, I just kind of didn't bother with the social media, so there weren't any posts this week. But usually they are daily, so check that out. Links in the description. We also have Sebastian's Instagram and YouTube. His Instagram is at Karl Marxman, and he has, I'm just going to guess, it's still just that one photo, right?
Still.
Since
I've never
episode
felt
1.
The urge. I've never had any reason to post anything else.
Yeah, it's because if you were to post something else, it would have to be better than that post, and I don't think anything can be better than that.
It can't be done. It cannot be done.
Otherwise, it would just kind of be like sad. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But more importantly, check out Sebastian's YouTube channel, 128 Seconds. Links in the description. He has videos. Some of them are about science. Some of them are about history, like, one's about World War I. But they are all explained in 128 seconds. So, yeah. Pretty great channel.
I'm also going to do, my next one is on technology.
That's cool. So that'll be this upcoming Wednesday. And you should check it out on his channel. All right. Then we also have A Truly Dead Rock. The link is available in the description, which will take you to Amazon.com, where you can buy it on paperback or ebook. The link I put is for paperback, though, because that gets me more profit. So, yeah. But you can very easily navigate to the ebook version if you prefer ebooks. I don't know. Some people are like paperback snobs, and they say like, "Oh, you're reading an ebook? Ugh, disgusting." They're like, I don't know why. I don't have a preference. I'm just like, I think ebook is definitely more convenient, but if you are going to bring your, paperback with you everywhere, then it's fine. But some people, they are really intense about not reading ebooks. They are seriously like, "Oh, you're reading that on your computer? It just feels like so hollow and empty or something." And I'm like, why are you analyzing this so much? It's reading. I'm reading, okay? Yeah.
To each their own, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. To each their own. Also, a thing is that teachers never trust you when you're reading an ebook. So if you're just reading, your teacher's like, "Why are you on your phone?" And you're like, "I'm reading." They're like, I can't check because my eyesight's failing and that screen's too small, but I'm just going to pretend like I am suspicious. So, yeah. Anyways, get the book. Exactly. It's a science fiction book. It takes place on the moon in the year 2102, and it's a great read. So I mean, biased source, but what am I going to do? Not advertise my book. So yeah, go buy the book. Okay, so our topic, the brain. Very simple, just the brain, plain text.
And it's not.
Yeah, it's very complicated, but the title is simple. Because some of the titles, take up 2 lines. This is a very small title. But the brain is a very complex system. In essence, the brain is just, it's a biological computer, and it's very complicated. We haven't been able to simulate the brain. I think the last time I saw a statistic like this, it was like it took the world's 4th most powerful supercomputer 40 minutes to simulate 1 second of 1% of human brain activity. Which is crazy. So it took them 40 whole minutes just to get 1 second of one pea-sized part of the human brain, which is fascinating. Very complex, right? Yeah. So
yeah, the brain is pretty good.
Yep.
Out of all the organs, pretty good.
Yeah.
Personal
we should
favorite.
do an organ
my personal favorite is the duodenum or the spleen.
Okay. But it's non-vital.
No further comment.
Okay. Yeah. I personally would have to go with vital organ versus non-vital organ distinction. All the vital organs, I would.
The duodenum is vital.
I don't think it's vital. I think I know some people that have had it removed.
Well, yeah, they're called dead people.
No. No. The spleen, isn't it just...
You can't survive without the...
I'm pretty sure you can. It's just extra...
You dare challenge me on this?
It's just extra red blood cell production, right? Just, most of it happens in your bone marrow. So it's kind of extraneous.
Are you insulting my favorite organ, the duodenum?
A little bit. That's a little bit.
Well, did you know that the duodenum leads to the jejunum? I
did not know that. I don't know what...
These are all parts of the small intestine.
Oh, okay. Are
the
these
first
all
part is
Latin?
The duodenum, then is the jejunum.
Is this all Latin? Because...
I think it's just gibberish, honestly.
Yeah. I'm like, okay.
But in between those two parts, you might find the duodenojejunal junction.
Conjunction junction.
Which is a traffic jam of a set.
Yep. Oh my gosh.
Isn't that just the connector piece?
Excuse me?
Not just the connector piece.
It's the junction.
I'm assuming from the word connector.
Yeah, it's just the connector, I think.
It's where they meet.
But I'm pretty sure the spleen is among the gallbladder and the appendix and organs that you can live without.
You need your spleen.
I don't think so.
I think. I should know this.
You should, yeah, if it's for your favorite organ.
Yeah, no, you need your spleen. You absolutely need your spleen. It controls all your lymphatics.
No, I'm pretty sure that it's a non-vital organ.
No.
Let me look it up.
It's a blood filter, so you kind of need it.
You get
the spleen a vital organ?
Spleen removed.
Okay, it is possible to live without it.
If your spleen needs to be removed, you'll undergo a surgical procedure called a splenectomy. Undergoing a spleen removal leaves you with a compromised or weakened immune system. Since infections can be more dangerous without a spleen, you may need yearly vaccines and prophylactic antibiotics. So I'll give the spleen that. It's not as useless as the appendix or like the gallbladder. It's a bit more vital, but still, like, you'll be fine.
Why don't I just stand up here and roast your favorite organs?
Okay. Well, my favorite organs are.
You're gonna come at my favorites like that?
I don't know. Are you gonna try and roast the vital organs though? Because those are my favorites.
Go ahead. Name one. Name one.
Name one. That'll probably be the brain. I mean, I know that's the topic of this episode. But
brain. I know. Brain has done pretty bad stuff.
Okay, that is true.
You're not wrong.
That is true.
Probably responsible for the worst atrocities in
counterpoint.
Overall, ugly
counterpoint. Those might have been
nasty.
Injured brains that have resulted in the worst atrocities. So it really shows how vital the brain is, because whenever it is damaged or dysfunctional, it results.
But if you didn't have it, none of it would have happened. So
okay, that is fair.
Wow.
Gotta go again.
Okay. Then the next one would be the heart.
Oh, the heart. The heart. If you're out here thinking the heart is a vital organ, you have not been in politics.
Okay. Then the lungs.
I can't even begin to think about the lungs, considering that I don't have them.
Oh. Do you have gills?
Oh.
Have you ever heard me take a breath?
Elaborate?
Really.
Have you ever heard me breathe or seen me breathe? You haven't. I don't breathe.
You took a large breath in the beginning of this stream.
I did not. That was just gas exchange happening in the alveoli deep in the duodenum.
That's called breathing.
No, it occurred in my duodenum.
Okay. Anyways, the brain is my favorite organ, and I would say it's the most vital. And this is because this is where consciousness is stored. When someone is considered brain dead, they are often taken off of life support. So what that means is most of your essence is in your brain. like most of what makes you you. That's all your memories, your personality, like everything, like your behavior.
That's why it's gotta.
All right. Well, let's get started. So first, we are going to look at the anatomy of the brain. So the brain has different sections, different parts, just like, any complex organ. Like the lung has, one of them has 2 lobes, the other has 3. The heart has its ventricles. So every organ has subsections. So we're going to look at the brain. And it's interesting because we have found, as scientists, that the brain isn't just a uniform blob of think machine, right? It actually has like specialization. Different parts do different things, So when throughout history, when a doctor has had a patient that has one part of their brain damaged, they look at what is happening with that patient, and they've deduced like, this patient isn't able to form words. They're not able to speak, and they have a specific part of their brain damaged. That part of the brain must be responsible or partially responsible for the ability to speak. So that's how a lot of this got figured out, because you can't exactly just, damage people's brains on purpose. You just have to wait until one gets damaged, like, naturally. Yeah, because then you would start to have, what do you call it, ethics. You would have ethics concerns as a doctor, do no harm. So, yeah.
It's generally considered immoral to purposefully stick things into people's brains.
Exactly. Yeah, so you have to wait until someone has had some horrible accident, and then you can get a lot of research off of it, which, opportunistic. It's interesting, medicine. Opportunistic medicine is kind of what this is, but it's taught us a lot. So, yeah. Shall we begin?
We shall.
Nice. Okay. We've got.
Was that the bite of 87?
Was that the bite of 87? The frontal lobe.
It wasn't.
It was not the bite of 87. That was the bite of 83. Why are there 2 bites in the 80s? Who knows? Ask Coffin. Anyways, the frontal lobe is very well named, in my opinion, because it is in the front of the brain. So, like, you don't have to puzzle it out. You don't have to look at Latin.
This man wrote a book, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you don't have to bring up your Latin dictionaries. You don't have to look at the root words. You just know frontal lobe. It is in the front.
Yep.
So it is responsible for decision making, right? I think decision making.
Yeah.
And it's
emotional expression.
Yeah.
Yeah, its official list is emotional expression, problem solving, memory, language, judgment, and other aspects of your personality and your ability to communicate as well.
Yeah, so it is often it's often said, by teachers. They always like to say, you teenagers, like, your frontal lobes aren't fully developed yet. And that's why teenagers act so irrationally, just because our decision-making centers aren't fully developed yet. So, like...
Yeah.
The judgment and problem-solving is still in the works.
Exactly. So
yeah,
that's...
It's also responsible for your motor skills as well. So cool. You couldn't move and groove without it.
Move and groove?
You could not move and groove without the frontal lobe.
Okay.
There's a lot of overlap with which parts do what, though. Yeah. Because the frontal lobe is not.
Well, yeah, but I mean, look at the brain itself. Like, it is overlapping. That's how it works, because the neurons, which we're going to talk about later, can actually cross into different lobes, and all the lobes have to talk to each other, or else they wouldn't function. And we're actually going to look at that further down, like later on at the end segment of the stream. What happens when parts of the brain aren't talking to each other, and it's some whack stuff. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, that is a caveat to what I said earlier about how the brain specializes. It specializes, but it's also confusing. It's an incredibly complex system. So while we have worked out some general things, like what each part does, there is still definitely some uncertainty. So it's difficult. That's why that's why it's not brain surgery, right? That's a common saying, or like it's not rocket science, or like you don't have to be a brain surgeon to blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That's why that is such
Not
a
rocket
common thing.
surgery.
Yeah, because if you mess up brain surgery, it's just like completely just explodes. Everything goes wrong, you know. So that's just how complicated the brain is.
Very complex.
Yep.
Like a large building with multiple areas. Complex.
Yep. So what else do you have about
the frontal lobe is the biggest one.
Yep.
You know, so it's also it's responsible for the most amount of stuff.
That makes sense.
You know, even though some of its duties do get overlapped by the other ones. But it in and of itself is probably one of the more crucial areas of the brain. And like I was saying earlier, when it gets like messed up, you start going a little wacky, you know, like your face turns into Markiplier here. That's what happens when frontal lobe is damaged. My face when. Yeah.
Is it true that the human body can survive without the frontal lobe?
I guess. Like completely without it, debatable. But like if you get a chunk of it taken out, you can still survive.
Yeah. Say it was a chunk taken out by, I don't know, evil animatronic.
Well, that's an oddly specific example, but let me look into that.
I don't know why. I was just randomly. No reason for me to say that right there.
Yeah, no reason. But Camille mentioned lobotomy, and that's actually exactly correct, because lobotomies were literally just an incision into the frontal lobe of the brain.
Yeah, those messed up.
Can you survive?
Yeah, lobotomies. Those were interesting. This is like. When were they?
Technically,
were they
you can.
You can't. So Five Nights at Freddy's.
However, you would experience a total paralysis of your cognitive abilities and motor control. In short, you wouldn't be able to reason and form simple thoughts, and you also wouldn't be able to move. So it would be best to keep your frontal lobe intact.
Cool.
People who come out of lobotomies alive usually don't come out fully functioning or functioning at all. So
yeah, when
not good.
They were used up until like 1950.
The 50s or 60s. I know JFK's sister got one. So like 60s.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Yeah. So this is crude. This is old brain surgery. That's not a good like set of words to combine. Old brain surgery. You don't want brain surgery of the past. Medicine tended to be a little brutal in the past. So the fact that they did brain surgery in the 40s, the 30s, it was not going to be pretty. So what they basically did was, I think sometimes would they go up through your eye, or so they would go.
They would go through the top of the eye socket and enter the brain, and then breaking through the thin layer of bone that's there. Then they like pull out the bone, and then they just like have a party. Wow. I guess.
Yeah, they just shake it around. They shake it around or whatever. They just keep cutting until it's separated, and they were supposed to cure like emotional, like personality disorders, or okay. So they were supposed to cure personality disorders, but the way that they cured it was just kind of by destroying an entire personality. Like you can't have a personality disorder if you no longer have a personality. So since the frontal lobe is connected.
Earlier saying that you can just take out the brain and then none of the bad things happen. That was their philosophy. Yep,
exactly. So the frontal lobe, since it, as you said, it was important for emotional expression, when someone had a lobotomy and their frontal lobe got extremely damaged, their emotional expression was muted, and so they were kind of like, neutral, like not very expressive anymore. So it was I don't know, like it's no longer legal to do it today. Like it used to be common practice, but now it's just gotten like lead in gasoline. Used to be common practice, but now it's illegal. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's an interesting.
So yeah, that's the frontal lobe. Very important. Biggest part of the brain. If without it, you can technically survive, but you just can't do anything. Can't even think.
Wow. Yeah. All right.
So yeah, definitely not a vibe.
Not a vibe.
Not for me. All right, next up, we have the occipital lobe.
Yep, the occipital lobe in the back of the head.
All the way in the back.
So it is.
So this is the visual process center. It's also known as the primary visual cortex, or it contains the primary visual cortex, I should say. It's an area of the occipital lobe. But yeah, it's pretty much mostly devoted to vision, and because vision is like the most important of the 5 main senses, it's not surprising that an entire area of the brain is devoted to it.
Yeah.
Secondly, it also helps regulate local orientation. So like figuring out where you are in a room, and shape perception, which are both just subsidiaries of visual reception, which is its main thing. So it's also like responsible for interpreting your depth perception, and pretty much anything else that involves seeing.
Yeah. So
it takes an input from your cones and rods for color as well.
Yeah. So it's like your eyes are just the data collectors, and your occipital lobe actually makes sense of the data. It sifts through it. It says, okay, right eye says this, left eye says that. Now I have depth perception. So it's like the processing unit. It's, the graphics processing core of your brain. Yeah, and I love in the bottom right corner, every time I open my eyes, I can see.
Yes. Yes, the floor here is made of floor.
But yeah, so the occipital lobe, very important for vision. Sometimes I think there's a type of blindness where there's nothing actually wrong with someone's eyes, and there's nothing actually wrong with their occipital lobe. It's just literally disconnected. So there's no link between their eyes and their occipital lobe, which is just crazy. So they are seeing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the optic nerve, it just does not get there. It just, I don't know, it's like severed in some cases. Maybe it just never fully developed in other cases, never fully formed. But the result is that they can't see. But at the same time, not all visual data goes to the occipital lobe. Some goes to other places. So they'll flinch if you I don't know, make a quick movement in front of their eyes, even though they can't actually see. They can.
Oh, I heard of that.
Yeah, they can detect motion. Yeah.
And there's also the phenomenon where that kind of blindness, if you hold up an object in front of them and you say, "What is this?" if they take a random guess, they're usually right.
Yeah, it's called cortical blindness.
Cortical blindness.
It's the total or partial loss of vision in a normal appearing eye caused by damage to the brain's occipital cortex.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. So I guess in their case, contrary to the bottom right, every time they open their eyes, they cannot see.
Exactly. Yeah.
They can subconsciously.
Yeah, but it's interesting because disorders like that just show how important the occipital lobe is, because even with perfectly with healthy eyes, you can still become blind just from damage to the occipital lobe or the optic nerve. Just so that shows how important this part of the brain is to our ability to see.
Yeah.
You can get as much input as you want, but you need something to actually understand it.
Exactly.
And that's what that
Yeah, it would be
does.
like speaking like a foreign language to someone that they don't understand. They're just like not really receiving any of the data. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's also been connected to stuff like schizophrenia
Mm-hmm.
and other things, because when like patients report seeing weird stuff,
Yeah.
that could be because of a lesion or like a tumor on the occipital lobe that's pressing down and distorting information that they get.
Yeah. That's interesting.
This hallucination.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. So, yeah. Do you have any more? That's it for me.
Yeah, that is. No, I think that's the occipital lobe.
Cool.
So give it up for our friend Vision.
Yep.
On the left.
Yep.
That's basically all it does.
Yeah, vision. Yeah. So, okay. Next is the parietal lobe. So,
yes.
The parietal lobe deals with what? Sense of touch.
Yeah, sensory information regarding the location of parts of the body, as well as interpreting visual information. So it does that with our boy occipital, and it also processes language and mathematics along with, and it does that along with. So, but it's mainly sensory. So all your five senses are tied in some way to the parietal lobe. And it just helps you make sense of that data.
Yeah. And I like our pictures here. We have this cursed image in the middle of a hand with an eye on it reaching out from a brain. I just saw that image as I was searching through, and I'm like, okay, I have to include this one. Just, yeah, it's so scary. Then we also have...
It's the telepathic vibe check.
Exactly. Yeah, telepathic vibe check. Then we also have...
in the right spot.
What?
Oh, yeah, they did.
Oh, there's... Oh, the reflection? Yeah. That's weird. Yeah, the reflection, I see that. But yeah, then we also have, yeah, what if you were blind and you read "do not touch" in Braille? Like that would be frightening. So yeah, so this is, about touch, the other senses as well. Let's see, I'm trying to think. I don't know of any disorders that specifically damage the parietal lobe.
I could find one for you real quick.
Let's see. Just like a demonstration usually. Because that is how scientists figured this all out. They found people, they had symptoms, and then they looked at them and they saw that they had brain damage, and so that's how they figured out what each of these lobes did, just by people with brain damage.
So damage to the parietal lobe can result in what's called Gerstmann's syndrome, which includes left-right confusion. So you have a difficult time differentiating what is left and what is right. Difficulty with writing, which is called agraphia. Difficulty with mathematics, which is acalculia. Disorders of language, which is aphasia, and the inability to perceive objects normally, which is agnosia. So anything involving the five senses is basically those disorders.
Yeah, a lot of those something disorders, the without blank. Yeah, so that's interesting. So when someone has a stroke and then they end up having aphasia afterwards, is that from damage to the parietal lobe, or where does that typically take place? Is it like the parietal lobe? I mean, I guess it can affect multiple spots in the brain, or any, but I'm wondering if there's one part of the brain that's more susceptible to a stroke than the others.
Yeah, so it usually, how a stroke works is it affects one side of the brain. So whether it's like your left or your right, different things can happen. So there's like three types of strokes, which I'm now learning. There is a transient ischemical attack, or ischemic stroke, and hemorrhagic stroke. but 87% of strokes are. So that's because of a blood clot.
Yeah.
When it keeps blood from flowing to your brain, and it's usually, that clot is usually due to a buildup of fatty deposits on the inner lining of a blood vessel.
So it's similar to like a heart attack, but for the brain.
Exactly. Yeah. So it affects one side of the brain, and that can either be the left or the right.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's the parietal lobe, very important.
Yeah.
For like speech and being good at math, for mathematics.
Those mathematics. But parietal lobe, definitely important. I couldn't pronounce parietal for a while until I did that project on the brain
Yeah,
all those years ago.
That is a difficult word. That's the only one here, it looks like,
Did you
that has...
before?
I can't remember what I said before.
Parietal?
Because I don't know. I trained myself to say. I literally could not tell you what I said before, but I said something jacked.
Yeah, if you look at this diagram, parietal is the only one that has two vowels next to each other. So that's probably the difficulty.
Thanks, Max.
Well, no, I'm just saying, because when there's one vowel, it's easier. You're just like...
This guy wrote a book.
Yup. When there's one vowel, it's easier to pronounce, like temporal. You can figure that out easy. Like spinal, frontal, like that makes sense. But parietal is a little trickier.
Yeah. Anyways, on to the temporal lobe.
Yep, temporal lobe. So we have the Back to the Future scene from Back to the Future. And that's just because temporal usually means time. But in this case, it doesn't. It means memory, right? So it kind of means time.
Yes.
But because memories are in the past. But it's not your typical time travel, like the temporal displacement device is blah, blah, blah. Or if they're getting real tricky, the quantum temporal displacement device. Because they always throw quantum on if they don't want to have to explain it. Or nano. So the nano quantum displacement device. Nano quantum temporal displacement device. Bam. Just wrote a time travel movie.
There you go.
That's your
so the temporal lobe is also involved in vision, like everything is.
Yeah.
But mainly it's involved in memory and specifically auditory stuff. So
comprehension.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Also, partially emotion, but most emotion is the lobe.
Yeah. So is it?
I believe if you screw with this part of the brain, I think you get seizures. I think that's how seizures are called, or are caused. I mean.
Yeah. Is it?
That would have been more visual
damage.
Is the temporal?
So they have difficult time recalling visual stimuli. Inability to interpret what is perceived. There's visual agnosia, which is like an impairment in recognition of visually presented objects. Oh yeah, it was someone held a rose in front of someone who had visual agnosia, and he could see the shapes, but he couldn't put it together as one thing. So he was like, there's a green stick and a circle. But he couldn't recognize it as a rose.
Yeah.
But as soon as he smelled it, he recognized that it was a rose.
Okay, so I think, does the temporal lobe, I was about to ask, is it connected to the olfactory nerve?
I could check. Yes, it is.
Okay, because that's interesting, because a lot of memories, like the sense of smell, is the most closely related to memories for some reason. Like if you're forgetting something, right? If you've forgotten something, if you have forgotten something, seeing an image, hearing a sound, or smelling a smell from that event, like to jog your memory, smelling a smell will be the most effective way to jog your memory. So, like if you see a picture of the place it happened, like not as effective. Hear a sound like a car screeching past, not as effective. But if you were to smell like flowers, and there was flowers that day, then that would be the most effective at jogging your memory, which is really interesting because the temporal lobe
A few years ago, my science teacher taught us that if we needed to study something and needed to remember it really well, we should use like cherry chapstick or peppermint or something that was really strong so that we could put it on the test day and then it would help us remember better.
Huh, that's fascinating. Yeah, so since the temporal lobe does handle memory, and since it also receives the olfactory nerve, that makes it like that founds that link between memory and smell, which is really interesting.
So if this part gets damaged, it isn't seizures, it was epilepsy, which I was thinking of, which can lead to seizures. But it's also responsible for dyslexia. Similarly how we said that you can be blind without there being any actual damage to your eyes, you can be deaf without any actual damage to your ears. If this part gets damaged. And also amnesia, which is obvious.
Makes sense.
You just can't remember anything, as well as schizophrenia as well. But that's like your entire brain is jacked. Someone poured gasoline on your brain.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So the temporal lobe is really your like memory processing, like storing information. That's cool. That's it for me.
Yeah.
Cool.
So those were the 4 lobes of the brain, and now we move on to a different part, which is the cerebellum.
Yep.
Now the cerebellum is responsible for actually quite a lot, even though it's just a small segment of the brain. Like our picture here, it is responsible for balance.
Yep.
So it is Thanos' favorite part. But it also coordinates your voluntary movement, which includes balance, posture, coordination, and speech. So, and also smooth and balanced muscular activity.
Fine motor coordination.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And we're going to talk about neurons a little later on. An interesting fact is that around, like, out of all of the neurons that exist in our brain, 50% of them are just in the cerebellum.
Wow. So it's very neuron dense.
Yeah, it's the most concentrated area of neurons, whereas the other 50% are spread out between every other part of the brain.
Wow.
But the cerebellum has just a ton of neurons.
Yeah. That's got to be like your Pareto principle. Like 80% of the neurons are likely in 20% of the brain. You know, like that. Well, actually, not exactly. But actually, maybe. Yeah. Depends, because the cerebellum's probably a little less than 20% of your brain. So if you
it's a little small for.
So if you widened that field a little bit and included, you know, a few more neurons, then you would have 80-20. But yeah, so that's interesting that it deals with balance. So I imagine if it gets damaged, you just will not be able to balance. Like
mans be tripping.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I know. So it must be attached to your.
Will also be really thrown off.
Yeah, exactly. It must be. It must handle the information from your vestibular system then. So the vestibular system is in your ears, and it is like it detects how you're oriented. So if you are standing upright, your vestibular system is like okay. And then if you're upside down, your vestibular system is like, okay. It's like there's fluid within this system. And
liquid, right?
Yeah, liquid. So there's liquid inside the system. And by moving around, if you accelerate quickly, you're sloshing the liquid around. And that's why if you start spinning really fast, it'll create a vortex within your vestibular system. So the liquid will start spinning. So even when you've stopped spinning, the liquid will still be swirling around, and that's why you get dizzy. So I imagine that the cerebellum handles this information and works with the vestibular system to keep you balanced. So if it's damaged, then it must have a similar effect to damage to the vestibular system, just like not being able to stay balanced. Like you could be on the ground laying down and still dizzy. Like that would suck. I think. Because dizziness is such an annoying feeling, right? Because it's not incredibly painful, but it is so uncomfortable. Like, I mean, and very disorienting, obviously, because that's what it is doing, disorienting you. But like, if you're just trying to do anything and you're dizzy, I just feel like that's the worst thing ever. Trying to concentrate while you're dizzy. So, yeah. So, what does damage to the cerebellum do?
Well, an interesting fact is that when you do drugs, it's your cerebellum that's largely responsible for some of the adverse effects that you feel. Like, obviously, dopamine is responsible for the euphoria part, but it's your cerebellum that is responsible for other parts of it.
Okay. So,
and it's actually what's the most damaged.
Oh, okay.
After, like, if you abuse cocaine or like meth or any of those stuff, that does damage to your cerebellum.
Also, people, like, when someone drinks alcohol, I imagine it impairs the neurons, like it blocks the neurotransmitters within your cerebellum. So that's why you're not supposed to drive after having drinking alcohol, because it messes with your motor skills. And that's
mind test, you can't do it.
Yeah, and that's why people, when they're drunk, they have poor balance and they're not able to walk right if they've drank too much. So it's like the chemical, the alcohol, inhibits your neurotransmitters within your cerebellum, so that makes you lose balance and motor skills. So
probably is the reason for the slurred speech part, since it's fine motor coordination that probably helps with speech.
Yeah, so pretty much just all of the symptoms, right? All of the results of, drinking alcohol can be described by the cerebellum, I would say. Also the liver. Those are the two areas most affected, I would say. Yeah. So that's interesting. So yeah, that's an example of what will happen when your cerebellum, not necessarily damaged, but temporarily impaired, is how someone acts when they are drunk. If your cerebellum was just not there, or like heavily damaged, that would just be you 24/7. So that would not be good. You would just not be able to function. So yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah. So then we move on to the medulla.
The medulla oblongata.
Or his full name is the medulla oblongata.
Yep.
But
it's oblong.
Yes. Anyways, it sits right above the spinal cord, and it's very small, but it's responsible for quite a bit. Like our friend Josh is saying here, I do not control the rate at which I digest, which is true, because it is actually Josh's medulla that is controlling that, because the medulla is responsible for those. Now I'm forgetting the word for it. What? Yes, thank you. The involuntary actions of the body. Jesus, thank you. God damn.
So digestion. I imagine, like blinking when you're not thinking about it, or like breathing.
Yeah, partial. Well, yeah.
Eat mostly.
Like while you're sleeping, for instance. Like the breathing rate while you're sleeping.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Beat, circulation, digestion, everything that you don't think about but happens anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all your body systems.
The medulla is responsible for all that. Well, actually, the heart beating, the heart is self-acting.
Yeah.
The brain does not control the heart. The brain isn't responsible for the heart, like, beating per se.
Yeah.
At, like, the tempo.
Yeah, the heart has its own.
Yeah,
there's like a.
It's the pacemaker inside your heart,
in the
which
heart.
is called the.
Yeah, it's a
or
small.
The sinoatrial node is the pacemaker of the heart. And that's what sends out the signal, which then goes to your AV node, and then that goes out, and that makes your atria contract, and then it like waits a bit, and then your ventricles contract, and then it starts all over again.
So it's this small cluster of cells in your heart that send out an electrical signal.
Which is why when the Aztecs would cut out your heart in like 0.3 seconds to sacrifice to river they thought of, your heart would stop beating because it's not your brain.
Oof.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's the heart.
Yeah.
And I guess I knew that happened. I just didn't connect it because I knew that the medulla controls like capillaries and veins, and I guess I just the blood circulation, and I guess I just connected that to the heart.
Yeah, the heart.
Well, what do you mean capillaries and veins?
I guess
the medulla
there, like there's pumps within your
with all the contraction.
Yeah.
Of any like blood circulation.
Yeah, the dilation and all that of the blood vessels. Yeah, that's one of its main.
Oh, so for instance, does it deal with when you get cold? When you get cold, your blood vessels contract.
Yeah.
When you get hot, they dilate. Okay, so it does that. I guess sweating too, probably. So it just regulates.
Also sneezing.
Yeah. Okay. So it just regulates everything that you cannot control, and some stuff that you can control, but you don't usually do it. Yeah.
Mostly it's you're not conscious of doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the involuntary action is how it's best characterized, but definitely a very important part of the brain. Give it a B tier. We do a tier list later, but not for
this. Yeah. Well, it's very important, definitely, because for the other parts of for the lobes and the cerebellum, we were able to think of like how would your body react to impairments or to removal of this part of the brain. We can't really do that for the medulla because you would just die.
You'd die.
You would just die because you would either overheat or begin to freeze depending on how contracted or dilated your blood vessels were. Even if you took manual control of your breath and like blinking manually, like even if you started to do that, your blood would just stop. Your veins or your arteries, they have like pumps to keep the blood moving. They wouldn't be able to do that anymore. You would stop digesting. Everything would go wrong. So the medulla oblongata is very important. I would say vital to your continued existence.
Yeah. So next up, we have the hippocampus. Now, we have our friend Patrick Starr here to say, I thought you said Weast. Because the hippocampus is responsible for navigation. Which Patrick is
he is
very
not
bad
good at navigation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it roughly translates to seahorse from Greek because that's what it looks like.
Nice.
Okay. So the hippocampus helps you with navigation. Maybe I'm thinking
it's also responsible for learning and memory.
Yeah, short-term memory.
It's one of the more plastic parts of the brain, so it adapts as you adapt. Like the more information you get, the more it changes. But it's also part of the limbic system, and it's important for motivation, emotion, learning, and memory.
So yeah, that's interesting.
So there you go.
It's short-term memory, right? So like after 5 minutes or something, it becomes stored in the like main sections of the brain. I think there was a case study I heard of where someone had damage to their hippocampus, so they had no short-term memory. Like someone could leave the room and then come back and they'd be like, "Hi, like great to see you." They could do that 100 times and like they wouldn't even recognize that because their hippocampus is damaged. So they have no short-term memory. I think that's called anterograde amnesia, right? So it's where you still remember the past, but you can't form any new memories because your hippocampus is damaged. Because there's retrograde and anterograde. Retrograde is when it's the classic TV show. I hit my head and now I don't remember who I am. I mean, there's a SpongeBob episode that has retrograde amnesia. So there you go. An example of everything in there. But anterograde amnesia is different. You still have your previous memories, but you have difficulty forming new memories. And so that stems from damage to the hippocampus, because this is what helps you form new memories. So, yeah.
Yeah. And as well, damage to it can eventually lead to like Alzheimer's and stuff.
Okay.
And Alzheimer's is still pretty, like, we need a lot of research into it because it's such a debilitating and complex disease.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely affects the hippocampus, and repeated damage to the hippocampus can actually cause it. Why? I think like when football players get like knocked silly for like years, they can get like CTE, which like degenerates their brain as well as the memory part. So yeah, repeated damage is not good.
Yeah. So the hippocampus is a very important part.
Yeah.
It's like your flow.
It's responsible for that memory, that navigation, and that learning.
Yeah, it's like the stream of input of information to your brain. Like it flows in and then you like hold on to it. This is just like a dam. If it gets damaged, you just cannot make new memories. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Check your heads, kids. Wear your helmets.
Yeah. Or just do not
I fell off a skateboard yesterday.
Yeah.
It hurt so much,
gosh.
but I wore my helmet. You know what? Even though it didn't help me at all because I fell on my arm.
Okay.
But
yeah. That's your insurance.
I wore my helmet.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're doing that, wear pads too.
He doesn't want to look like a complete dweeb.
Yeah. Do you think I have a hippocampus in my arm?
No, you see, at this point, right, it's become respectable to wear a helmet because now more people are like educated in the ways of being safe. But if you were to go out with full arm pads, knee pads, then people would be
look like a clown.
So we've come a long way in the terms of, destigmatizing basic safety precautions, but we haven't gone all the way. Yeah. So that's it for me for the hippocampus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's all there is to the hippocampus.
All right. So now we move on to the thalamus. Oh, don't mind me, just passing through.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. The thalamus is just one big train station where neurons go like in and out and information passes through very quickly. So just like our friend, that abomination, information is just passing through the thalamus.
Oh my gosh. I think that picture reminds me of when you take a panorama of a beautiful scene, like a nice beach or something, or you go to a cool landmark in Europe, but then there are other people there and they move around, and then you look at your panoramic
specifically
photo.
In Europe.
Yeah, well, I just mean there's a lot of
because there are no cool landmarks anywhere.
No, I mean the ancient Versailles, Tower of London, yeah. All the the Colosseum. I mean
I don't know. I've never been to Europe.
Oh, okay. Well, I just mean the big constructions of Europe, the ancient things. Sorry, when I think of taking a panoramic photo, it's always either at our town's local beach or in Europe. It's one of those two things. I never use the panoramic function on my phone for anything else. I literally cannot remember. Other than just at the beach and being like, oh, this looks nice, or being in Europe and being like, oh, this looks nice. But yeah, so when people move during a panoramic photo, I think that's what creates this effect of this cat. Yeah, so.
I love using the panoramic mode to purposefully make pictures like this cat, because sometimes you get the most gold photos. Oh my god.
Yeah, they can be pretty funny. But yeah, so the thalamus, so your different parts of the brain need to talk to each other, and the way they do that is by passing through the thalamus. So what happens
That's basically...
Yeah, what happens if it's damaged?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, damage to the thalamus?
Yeah.
Let me check.
Because I know some left hemisphere, right hemisphere separation, like disorders.
Oh yeah,
like,
that's when you. That's okay. So yeah, when it gets damaged, you go in coma because
wow.
nothing is talking to, or it's not talking to each other at the speed it's supposed to.
Mm,
So you just go into a coma.
wow.
It can also lead to sensory changes in a body part.
Uh-huh.
So there's movement disorders, lack of movement / motor disturbance.
Huh.
So, yeah.
I learned a new about this one.
Yeah.
Diencephalon. It's the part of the forebrain.
So yeah, so it's very important. Then.
Yeah. All right, let's head over to our second subtopic.
All right, now we've got
neuropsychology.
Yeah. Neuropsychology. So this is not just the Sigmund Freud, how does that make you feel? This is specifically looking into the neurotransmitters and the functions of your brain on cellular level and how that affects human behavior. So that's what neuropsychology is, right?
Yeah, neuropsychology is all about the neurotransmitters. And we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to rank them, and then we're going to talk about how they get from place to place. But first, we got to talk about what they are and what they do, basically.
All right. Yeah, so let's go.
So let's head over to the next one. Right off the bat, the one that everyone knows, dope. It's the hap chemical. It's responsible for all your euphoria needs. And that gets released whenever you complete a task or you take drugs or any of that kind of stuff. But here, let me look up specifically what the scientific word for that is.
Just any sense of achievement, whenever you accomplish something and you're happy with it, that is where you get your dopamine. So it's just all the basic pleasures of life.
Yeah, it also stimulates a person to seek out the pleasurable activity or occupation.
Okay.
This is why addiction works.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it is how, it's how addiction works. Dopamine is, I think they've found that playing addictive video games, I think there was a case where someone got addicted to Candy Crush, which is oof. Of all the games, you could have gotten, you could at least have some, dignity. You could play Minecraft.
Yeah, have some dignity. Just get addicted to meth like the rest of us.
No, but they could have played a good game, but they were playing Candy Crush.
Yeah.
A mobile game. And yeah.
Mobile gamers.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, so dopamine.
If you're a mobile gamer and watch stream, get off.
Oh no.
we got new chat.
We got new chat. We have KCC, big brain time. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. We should have had that a second Markiplier meme.
I could throw it in.
No, it's fine. This slide's pretty crowded, so
no, not on this slide. I was just gonna put it at a random interval.
Oh,
and
okay.
Have you guess.
Yeah, put it somewhere, and we can be afraid. Yeah, put it somewhere randomly.
Yeah, all right. Tell us about serotonin.
Okay. So serotonin, I imagine it's fairly similar to dopamine, but didn't you say it was more the physical aspects? So dopamine.
Yeah. So when you eat food, when you when is serotonin? But yeah, it's basically it's the beta version of dopamine. Honestly. It's it's produced in the blood, and it's obviously moved around in the blood, but it affects the brain. But also, if you have too much serotonin, that stimulates vomiting, which is why one of the reasons that drugs and alcohol make vomit, other than the damage to your organs, it's also your brain. The influx of serotonin.
So how do
dopamine
and serotonin affect mood? Because I know that a lot of prescribed drugs for depression or anxiety have different amounts of dopamine or serotonin in them. So what specifically do they do? Because I feel like isn't dopamine a more active version of serotonin? Like dopamine, not only does it make you happy, it also makes you like energized, whereas serotonin is slightly different.
Yeah, they're the happy hormones because they regulate mood and emotion.
Mm-hmm.
But they sorry, hold on, I'm trying to figure out how to speak words.
You might have aphasia.
Yeah, you might have aphasia.
No, so dopamine is more toward mood and alertness, and serotonin is more like hormonal activity, concentration, sleep-wake cycle. So I'm assuming the balance between those is just where the problem is in the brain that's making you sad. I don't know a lot about this.
Yeah, so its function is to make you feel good.
Okay.
That's its main function, and it's released after you do a pleasurable activity. You know, also after like you preserve yourself, quote unquote. It's a self-preservation technique. So after you drink water, after you eat apple, after you like have children, you know, that's when dopamine is released. But it's what it actually does is make you feel good. That's its purpose.
Yeah.
But the have children one is actually oxytocin, not dopamine.
Thank you for being on the live stream and goodbye.
No.
Hi.
No, that's definitely true. I think it's both.
Yeah,
right?
no, that's true. That's true.
But definitely oxytocin is famous as I mean, we did an episode where we talked about oxytocin.
Yeah. We talked about it.
No, not like that.
We know about it.
In La Science des Romans, in that episode, The Science of Romance. The episode that we did in French, because for some reason France is associated with love. Hey, I've been to France. They are... They are not the kind
I guess they don't have anything else.
Yep, exactly.
Just one of the romance.
It's interesting that romance is associated with France. I don't know why. I always associate France with being mean to Americans. Because that's what they always say when you go to France. They're like, oh, be careful when you're in France. Like, put on a British accent because they don't like Americans for some reason. I think it's something or other.
We saved them in pretty much every war.
Well, maybe it could be that when they were having the French Revolution, America didn't help, and they helped with the American Revolution. So they're like, dude, WTF. They're like, we helped you, and you won't even return the favor. Wow. I don't know.
Treaty that we were going to, and then we ignored it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like France hasn't ever ignored a treaty. Am I right? Audience?
I did.
Alright. Hey, yeah. We're not here to talk about France. We're here to talk about what drugs our brain produces. So next up, we got glutamate. What glutamate does, and that's bottom left, what glutamate does is it's how signals are actually transported through our brains. Our brain sends electrical impulses out, but what's actually carried on and what some of the things are aligned with, like some of the pathways are aligned with, is glutamate. So glutamate is responsible for like your thoughts, basically. Like it's how everything is communicated. It's what the signal actually is. It's glutamate along with electricity.
Okay, so does it help insulate, or is it a conductor of electricity?
Yeah, I would say it's a conductor because it carries the charge.
Okay. So does it operate between two different neurons, or?
Here, wait.
Because the neuron is able to transmit electricity through itself, but then maybe when it gets to the junction between two neurons, it needs the glutamate to go across to stimulate the electricity on the other neuron.
Yeah, I think that is how it works.
Yeah, so talk about
it
neurons.
binds to certain receptors,
Okay.
and it allows the entry of the electricity.
Okay. So yeah, we'll talk
So
about
it
neurons.
clears
in
a path
second.
for the electricity.
Yeah. Yeah.
It helps the charge along.
Yeah. So a neuron, we'll talk about it in a bit, but it has, kind of a cord like a wire that transmits electricity, and it connects to another neuron with another cord, and there's a tiny space in between, and that's like where the magic happens. So the glutamate needs to bind to the receptors so that the electricity can actually go through that little gap. If you don't have the glutamate, then it blocks. I imagine there's another neurotransmitter that specifically blocks the electricity too, or maybe it's just absence of glutamate. But it's a bit like circuitry.
Well, yeah, the next one we're going to talk about also involves that principle.
But yeah, it's like circuitry. If you learn circuitry, if you had, I don't know, a STEM program in middle school, that's where I learned circuitry, STEM class. So circuitry, it's like an open versus a closed circuit. So your glutamate is like your switch because it opens or closes the circuit in your brain. So, yeah.
Yeah. So hit present and present again because I.
All right.
All right. Okay. But next up we have acetylcholine, aka. So. See, that's actually what our anatomy teacher calls it. That's how he refers to it.
That's funny.
This is all muscle movements. So earlier I said the frontal cortex is what allows you to move and groove. Well, without this guy, you could not move and or groove. So, this is like you talked about how certain neurotransmitters open receptors. This acetylcholine opens the receptors to your myofibers, which are your muscle cells. So they allow the sodium to pass into which is why your body needs salt, by the way. It allows the sodium to go into your muscle cells, which allow them to move and contract and relax. Well, those are the only two things a muscle actually does is contract and relax.
Yeah.
But none of it would be possible without acetylcholine. And
yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it also does REM, right?
Like for sleep? Maybe. I'll ask him next time I see him.
Next time you see REM?
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
Next time you sleep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Your muscles are a lot like hydraulics, right? I mean, I know they're not hydraulics, but if you think about it, they only operate in one direction. They only operate in and out. Like, you don't actually, like, each individual muscle isn't able to move in, like, 3 dimensions. It's just able to move across 1 dimension. It's able to get longer or shorter. So it's pretty crazy that we can move in all 3 directions because our individual muscles can only move in 1 direction. So it's the combination that allows you, although you cannot see it because this is a live stream with a presentation, but I'm waving my arms around. So if you would all wave your arms around with me, that's what acetylcholine allows you to do.
Yeah, acetylcholine is also, like Camilla said, it is involved with REM sleep, which I just learned.
Cool.
I did not know that.
Oh, that's interesting.
I wasn't completely sure. So I'm really glad I got that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the formula. This is whack.
So what else do we have here?
Yeah. So next up, GABA, which is what does GABA say? I used to know what it stood.
Gamma aminobutyric
butyric acid. Thank you. Yes, gamma aminobutyric acid.
I wrote.
Yeah. It is the inhibition chemical because it blocks brain signals and other stuff that if you had too much of, you could die.
Okay.
You know, or worse, you could something else could happen, and you could become
worse?
brain dead.
Worse
and
than
your brain
die.
could light on fire, and you could fail a test or something.
Yeah.
Something terrible.
We could be killed or worse,
than death.
Expelled.
Yeah.
You know that quote?
Oh yeah, that's the Hermione quote.
Yep. She really needs to get her priorities straight.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that.
Yep.
Yeah, no, GABA is the Hermione of chemicals because it is poorly strung together, but it also serves to inhibit stuff.
All right.
Take that, J.K. Rowling. I'm a salty character.
Wow, what an unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
What a unique remark on the internet. That
Bam. Hermione's a terrible character. Bam. Gone.
Ooh, wow. Being controversial here. But so that's it. So GABA, it's like you're so it's like closing or opening the switch. Yeah. It's making what am I saying? It's preventing pathways from being used when you don't want them used. Like, if you think of muscle memory, right? That's really just your brain gets really good at making one motion, and so the series of neurons that are activated for that one motion get really good at activating in sequence. So whenever you don't want to be doing that action, you have GABA there, preventing that pathway from being launched. Otherwise, you would just constantly be doing you'd constantly be playing whatever instrument you're a virtuoso at, because that's what they always talk about when they talk about muscle memory. Or you would be constantly pitching a baseball or something like that. So GABA is good because it turns off everything that should be off 99% of the time, and then the 1% of the time that you need it, it's okay, I'm gonna head out. And then you can have whatever it is. Yep.
I guess my inability to speak English spread a little.
Well, I'm doing better than the last episode, because last episode, although I didn't know it, I literally had the flu, influenza, so I was not speaking very well. I was...
Oh my God, he's speaking Spanish.
Exactly. No, I just did not know any words last episode. Which is difficult. I was constantly dropping words, I wasn't able to figure out the word for anything. But I'm all
doing
better.
That.
I wouldn't say all better, I guess. I would say 90% better. I'm 90% better now. So
I'm only at 90% of my power.
Exactly. Once I get to 100%, I will be the ultimate max. So get ready. I will be at maximum. Bam. Yeah. So let's see. So now we've got endorphin.
Endorphins.
Yeah.
This is the happiness you have to work for. You have to exercise. You have to lift pure iron to earn the endorphins.
Okay.
You have to work for this one. Bub. You have to go on jogs, mainly jogs around the lake, with the sunset behind you, and butterflies in your hair to get endorphins.
Do you have specific workout clothes?
Fun fact.
The joggers, you'll see a jogger, and you can tell whether they're a casual jogger or an intense jogger based on whether or not they have those skin tight shirt and shorts.
Well, yeah, you can actually get addicted to jogging because of endorphins.
Yeah.
That runner's high is endorphins.
Huh, that's interesting. Yeah, so it's similar to dopamine and serotonin, but Sebastian, it's the ultimate form. Sebastian likes it a lot more.
Yes, which is why I'm so ripped. I'm not, but
Sebastian really likes hot peppers and hot things.
Yes.
And I can't handle them, but capsaicin is the thing that makes hot peppers hot.
Is that
and
how
it
it's
also
pronounced?
capsaicin, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I think.
I've only ever read it. Never said it.
So capsaicin
Yeah, I
also
guess
releases.
that would be my guess.
So it also releases
Oh,
endorphins.
Yes,
it also
because
really.
the two
Yeah.
biggest releasers of endorphins are stress and pain.
Well, okay. So it's kind of like your body. It's the condolences. It's like, okay,
Yes.
you're in pain, but like we don't want you to just completely shut down. Like you got to be able to handle this situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, endorphins.
Natural painkillers.
Yeah, exactly. You might see endorphins on. Like I remember seeing a sign. Like you always see exercise releases endorphins. You see that everywhere. When
Yeah.
like it's kind of like when your school's gym class is trying to be relatable to the people that don't like exercise. So they're like, appeal to science. Endorphins are released when you exercise. So, and that makes you feel good. So exercise. And then everyone's like, huh, yeah, I like to feel good. Oh, okay. I guess I'll exercise now. Like, those, you see those, yeah. So that's endorphins. Yeah, it's your body's like way to keep you from completely like shutting down in response to pain. So yeah, pretty good. Also pretty rare compared to like dopamine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, next up.
Yep.
Norepinephrine, which basically adrenaline, which is why it's also known as noradrenaline. How is it different than adrenaline? Let me Google it.
Yep. Norepinephrine. So this makes you stressed out. And that can be good in quantities. For instance, if you are being attacked by an angry bear, you might want to have a little bit of stress because that will boost your body into overdrive, so you'll be able to better handle the situation. But again, it's a bear, so you actually probably won't do very well unless you have a weapon. But it's there, right? But in situations where you don't need your body to be in physical overdrive, it can be taxing. So, right before a test or something, you can get your adrenaline and norepinephrine boost. But sometimes it's just stressful because you're like, oh, I have so much homework. I'm just stressed all the time. That is not good. That is, I guess there are some
bad.
Yeah, that is bad. It's interesting because there are situations that our ancestors didn't have to deal with as much, and now we do have to deal with them, and evolution can't really keep up. So norepinephrine, like its purpose versus actual use. So norepinephrine, the purpose was to give you to be better at hunting, to be better at fleeing from a dangerous animal, right? So very physical things that you need physical strength for, and the adrenaline, norepinephrine, helps give you a temporary boost of strength. So in modern life, when you have norepinephrine and adrenaline being released when you're not actually in any danger, that is not good for you. Stress is related to getting high blood pressure and heart attacks. So you want to make sure to keep the stress off. Every once in a while, just try and be calm. Like you can watch that one YouTube channel where they build houses out of bamboo or whatever. You know that YouTube channel where they build a pool. They just build stuff out of mud somehow. They just Minecraft manifest that. Watch some of those every once in a while, or watch this live stream. This can be relaxing.
Watch
yeah, exactly.
Calm yourself.
Yeah. Watch things watch the sunrise or something. Try to lower that norepinephrine because it's not really as necessary in modern society unless you have a very dangerous job or living situation. But for most of you, your life is probably not very physically dangerous. So the norepinephrine and adrenaline that is being released into your body is just negatively affecting you. It's negatively affecting your blood, your heart. So you just want to be able to minimize it, to be non-stressed. So yeah, so that's norepinephrine. It's kind of bad in most instances, I would say. most modern
That's what it does.
instances. In the past, it was very useful though, and it can be useful still, like if you're being attacked by an angry bear. But but in most situations, it is not going to be as useful as it used to be. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So should I go to the next slide?
Yeah, we can move on to the tier list.
Cool.
I will head this.
All right.
I'll start at F, where we have no norepinephrine. Garbage. Terrible. Absolutely horrendous, atrocious. Which is one word. This is just, out of all of these, this is the worst. An absolute atrocity. Just a blemish on what neurotransmitters stand for. Causes like stress, which I've heard is bad. It causes like all those terrible things that stress causes. Heart attacks and like obesity and like all those terrible shows on Netflix and like all that. And it's just worse adrenaline. There's like no reason for it. It's like, what's the deal with norepinephrine if we have adrenaline? No reason.
It's like,
all it does is it affects the blood vessels instead of your.
Yeah.
Why can't one do both?
It's like you say.
Doesn't make inefficient.
It's like you're in your car and you say, "Hey mom, can we get adrenaline at McDonald's?" And then she says, "No, we have adrenaline at home." That's norepinephrine.
It's norepinephrine right there. Exactly. So F tier. Thanks for bringing up the caboose. Norepinephrine. Send us a postcard. So up at D. Because we have never put anything on E tier. Actually, we put one thing on E tier during the particle video.
Yeah.
But that,
norepinephrine on both.
No, norepinephrine. I will shrink that thing down past F tier. That can go to like E tier. Oh wait, no, not E tier. G tier. I forgot how the alphabet works. Sorry, I was looking straight at E when I said G.
Go to
when
Z
I said
tier.
E. Oh my god. Anyways, D. GABA. More letters. Oh boy. Yeah, GABA. Get out of here. Trying to limit me? Limit my power? I could be lifting trucks by now. I could be passing anatomy by now if it wasn't for these limiters, because too much of these chemicals will stop my heart. Get at it. Give me my chemicals. Give me it all. I paid for this body. I'm going to use all of this body. Give me my full potential. I want to fly. I want to light myself on fire just by thinking about it. But this D tier looking GABA is stopping me from doing so.
Will you back up a few steps to the I bought this body part?
At C tier, we have serotonin, which is just beta dopamine. There's no reason for it. It makes you fat, because if you're sucking on your croissant, right? Or not to like target anyone, but if you're eating a baguette or you're eating some creme brulee, you see what I'm getting at. And like your serotonin releases, and then you're like, good, especially bad food, good, right? So then you stay at whatever the French version of McDonald's is, and you keep eating and eating and eating until you look like a sphere.
Okay.
And that's all serotonin's fault.
All right.
At B tier, we have acetylcholine. Allows you to move your muscles. Pretty good. Not the best. If I wasn't able to move my muscles, I would probably be a lot less. I would have a lot less requirements, and I would be asked a lot less. But because I have motion, I have to do things. Also on B tier, dopamine. All right. Not bad. Happiness is good, but also leads to addiction, which is bad. And you can cheat dopamine. That's the thing. You can cheat dopamine and serotonin. You can go out to anywhere, buy 16 pounds of drugs, right? Which is like 57 kilograms. I don't know how to do the conversion. You get all that 57,000 kilograms of drugs. You just inhale all of them. Dopamine and serotonin are just produced out the wazoo, right? Just there, right? Just absolutely, you just robbed the bank of dopamine and serotonin. You didn't even do anything. You just spent like $5 on 57,000 kilos of drugs. But at A tier, we have glutamate. Glutamate is what allows this podcast to be a thing because we have to think. We have to use our brains, and this is how you learn and like gain information and like transmit information and all that. I wouldn't be able to think without glutamate. The only reason it's not an S is because if some other people weren't able to think, the world would be a lot better place. So it gets docked a place at A. At S tier! This is nature's law. You have to work for success. This is what everything should be. This is merit-based happiness. Dopamine and serotonin. I just got a little burger. I'm just gonna eat it and get some happy. No! Endorphins. You have to like lift pure iron to get that happiness. You have to run around your lake. I don't know why I keep going back to the lake, but I'm thinking about it. I don't even live. I probably do. I just don't know about it. You gotta just put all of you gotta exert yourself to get endorphin. You gotta feel pain to get endorphins. I light my mouth on fire on a weekly basis just to get endorphins. These are no joke, and these are what inspire you to be a better person, right? Thank you.
Well,
everyone in chat, take a wild guess at what Sebastian's favorite is.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that little segment right there felt perfect for one of those fan animation videos, when they make those. I was just imagining that in my mind right now. Like when they do that for a comedian's, like a segment of their stand-up act, they do like John Mulaney animated or something. And they have a section of their act. I was just imagining that in my mind right now as you were doing that whole thing. I was just like, okay, what would they animate for that part?
Little cartoon me going around screaming,
like 57,000 kilos of drugs.
57,000 kilos of drugs. You can't cheat endorphins. Endorphins look you in the eye and they see right through you like you were glass, right? They look through you and they're like, boy, you gotta put in the work or else this isn't gonna work. And then they dissipate. Why do they dissipate? They were a hallucination all along. That's the M. Night Shyamalan twist at the end of the movie. You never even had a father, but you need the work to get that father, to get that dad, to manifest him into reality. You think dads just show up? No. You gotta work for them.
Well,
there are so many great quotes in that
exactly
section.
Yep.
You think you just get birthday party? You think birthday parties are just handed to you? No, I had to fight to have a birthday party. I got locked in a cage with 16 rabid dogs for my 3rd birthday. And I felt the endorphins rush.
I can imagine.
That was the best birthday I ever had.
Oh my god.
Thanks, endorphins. Now I am Sebastian Dog Slayer.
Oh no. Well, that was enlightening.
Thank you. I cannot feel my legs.
Okay. I'm gonna go to the next slide. I don't think I could add anything to that. That was perfect. All right.
You sounded like you were doing a commercial.
It did. Yeah. So now we have.
Hey, you depressed? Try endorphins. Get off the couch, fat ass, and go outside. There's a there, and you're sitting there sad. You're like, oh, I'm just gonna eat these chips, get a little serotonin. that's not real happiness, Bubba. You got to go outside. You got to do a little jog, do a cartwheel, learn how to do a backflip, do a magic trick for someone that you like. Those are the endorphins.
All right. Yeah, so now we've got neurons. So let's talk a bit about neurons, right? So we have our sections of the neurons.
I have so many endorphins pumping through my body, I can't even comprehend.
So we have, let's see. The neuron, what I can see right now is you've got a little central structure where most of the cell stuff is happening, and then you've got your axon, and that's your cord, that's your wire, and that goes to another neuron, and they are all connected
so
like this.
What neurons do are they're what transmit those nerve impulses, right? They are nerve cells, is what they actually are, right? That's their definition.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But yeah, they have two main parts, which is the axon, which you can see in the middle of that, and the dendrite. Everything else is like BS, basically.
Okay.
But like on the inside of that like cell, that's just what's inside a regular cell, just in a nerve cell.
Yeah.
But what we need to pay attention to is the axon and the dendrite. What the axon does is that's the message travels along that, right?
Yep.
And on the axon, it has what's known as a myelinated sheath. I think that's the term. Let me check. Yeah, myelinated sheath goes on the axon, and it helps pass the message along faster.
Yep.
And what you were saying before about how the more myelinated it is, or like how the more often you do something, the quicker you're able to do it.
Yeah.
That's why. It's because the more times a message is passed through the axon, the more myelin, or whatever the myelin is made out of, is built up on it, which allows it to go way faster, which is, again, kind of what muscle memory is.
Yeah, that's interesting.
The dendrite is just what attaches to other cells, basically.
Okay. So this is your receiver from other axons?
What part?
The dendrite?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they both here.
Yeah, so it's like sending
I
and
would
receiving.
expect so, yeah.
Yeah. Like the telandria, or telondendria of the cell.
they are where the synapses are.
Okay.
And so some of them receive the information, and some of them transmit the information to other neurons. Basically, this builds a massive pathway, which we know as the nervous system, which is what allows you to feel everything.
Yeah. So you've got a giant circuit board here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is really cool. I like the axon stuff because theoretically, right, this is just something I think about, right? So axon travel speed is only around 250 miles per hour, right? Like data.
I could check.
Like data in the brain, I think, or just in the body, the nervous system too, like reaction time, it only moves at a certain speed. It's nowhere near the speed of light, right? It only moves.
Yeah, no. 150 meters per second. When it's myelinated, an unmyelinated axon goes from. Oh yeah, okay, so that's a good statistic. Unmyelinated axon conduction velocities range from about 0.5 to 10 meters per second.
Oof.
Whereas myelinated axons can conduct at velocities up to 150 meters per second.
Wow. Yeah, that's a huge difference. But yeah, so theoretically, right? This is like a concept I had for like a book idea, for a story idea, is that what if you went in and replaced your axons with like, fiber optics that actually transmitted at the speed of light? You could think 1,000,000 times faster.
Yeah.
So that would be crazy. You would be able to think so much faster if the data were to actually move at the speed of light. But instead, it actually moves, at like race car kind of speeds. So that's interesting.
Test would be a breeze.
Yeah, exactly. It would be a little too much even. I think it's that if your axons were able to transmit data at the speed of light, it would take you like 12 seconds to process like an entire month of thought. So you would be thinking for like months on end, and just like a minute would pass, which would be crazy.
Wow.
Would that perception of time too?
Yeah, so you'd see everything moving really slowly if you were able to process things at the speed of light. So you would be able to process faster, then everything around you would look all like incredibly slowed down. It would be so slow that you probably wouldn't even process it. You would just be like, okay, this is the picture I'm staring at right now. Then 12 mind days later, you would be like, okay, the picture changed slightly, which is interesting. So obviously you would want to be able to control that. You wouldn't want to fully go to the speed of light for your axons, but imagine if you could go, if you could like make your axons move 10 times faster, like move data 10 times faster. That would be interesting. Also, if you were able to, I don't know, control a small robot that was capable at moving at speeds that you would still be able to comprehend instead of just sitting there, like thinking forever. But if you could turn it on and off, right? If you had the ability to go from normal axon speed to speed of light axon speed and then back again, like you could just turn it on and off, then say someone insults you, right? You could enter speed of light axons mode, spend, hours on end thinking of the perfect comeback, and then you can turn off like hyper axon mode and be like, boy, you are the definition of a trash can or something, like whatever fits the circumstance. So that would be a cool ability to have if your axons actually went at the speed of light. Yeah.
Like this ability, the first thing you thought of was comebacks to insults.
Yeah, kind of. Kind of. That was one of the first things I thought of. I also thought of you could have a dream that lasts like 2,000 years. If you were to just go to bed and sleep for 8 hours, that would be 2,000 years with speed of light neurons. What if...
Imagine how slow blinking would be.
Oh, blinking. Yeah, it would just be dark for like a day. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be crazy. But yeah, so neurons, they are very interesting. And they are very capable, but it's interesting what would happen if someone were to develop a technique to allow them to transmit data at light speed. Like, I don't know, like if they were to use nanobots or something, like nanosurgeons, like they do that. But yeah, so that's neurons. I don't have anything else on neurons.
Yeah. They the brain's radio.
Yeah, exactly. Should I go to the next slide?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Okay. Gray matter versus white matter. So what's the difference?
What's the difference? Well, if you look closely at you can see that it is indeed big brain time.
God.
Oh my gosh. Big brain time.
Yeah, basically gray matter, the difference between gray and white matter is that gray matter contains more cell bodies and less myelinated axon. Whereas white matter is the opposite, where it has few cell bodies and is composed mainly of those myelinated axons, which is why it's white. Because that's the myelin.
The color.
Myelin. That covers those. So white matter is where information is passed through the quickest, whereas gray matter that's where the cells are. So they basically regulate the white matter. That's it. It's just some people don't understand that. So
yeah. So the white matter are faster moving signals, whereas gray matter is more memory storage, right? Yeah.
You could also think of it like that.
Yeah. So it's like your quick time events
Thalamus.
that you
need.
Yeah, like your reflexes, your ability to like think fast when someone throws a ball at you, right? That reflex is probably using more white matter in the brain, whereas having a nice reminiscent think over a melancholic sunset would be more the use of gray matter. Just like recalling memories and days of yore and blah, blah, blah. That's gray matter versus white matter. So that's interesting. Yeah. So that comes out of, I guess, need, like biologically, like some processes you need to be able to do quickly. And if you can't, then you'll, die off. And that's, your evolution begins to change the brain so that there's parts of the brain that are able to process things faster than others. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So
yeah, that's basically it.
Okay, cool. That's a quick one. All right. Interesting conditions. So.
No, we're not talking about the weather. We're talking about conditions of brain.
Yeah.
When brain goes oops, people go loops. That's what we're going to talk about.
Yep. Yeah, so some of these are specific case studies. Some of these are specific case studies, which means that it's a specific person and an injury that they have, and the other ones are just conditions, so just disorders, things that have gone wrong in multiple people. So yeah. All right, so let's start with a very recognizable name when it comes to brain conditions. You know him. He is Phineas Gage. So you've probably heard of Phineas Gage before. The story goes, he was working on a railroad, what was this, 1800s?
Yeah.
And he was, working with this rod on a railroad, and it kind of just shot through his head. It just went through his head. And everyone, would think, okay, he's got to die from that. I mean, look at that diagram of the skull right there. Everyone would think, okay, that's got to be fatal. But no, he just survived that injury. And the result was interesting for neuroscience. So, yeah. I could keep going. But
what happened to him was the spike went through his frontal lobe, which, if you remember how we talked about it before, it controlled your personality. So before the spike had a meeting with his brain, he was described as a generally nice guy, a gentleman, even though it was like a gentleman from the 1800s, so that could have been a wide range of things. But
yeah.
He was described as a very nice, kind, easygoing guy until that fateful day on the railroad when, something exploded. I think there was, a stick of dynamite left astray.
Yeah,
happened.
It was something. It's like a method of, something or other that involves an explosive process, and it just wouldn't explode, right? It just wasn't working. So apparently, he, rookie mistake. Since it wasn't going off, he just, looked down the barrel pretty much. It's like looking down the barrel of a, jammed gun or something. Not a good idea. That's pretty much what he did. He, this rod, it was supposed to explode and supposed to, go off, and it just wasn't. So he's like, that's interesting. So then he looks down and, it goes through his head, which, not good. Yeah.
Yeah, so it hit his frontal lobe, and after it, before he was a nice guy, absolute just Chad. But after it, he was described as being just a complete, just aggressive. I think he became an alcoholic. His personality completely 180'd, and he just became an absolutely awful. To be around. He would pick fights and all that. And his personality just changed so drastically.
Yeah. The main
Did it hit his addiction center?
No, he could talk.
His addiction center. Is that why
I thought he said diction. Maybe. I don't know. Or maybe he just turned into so much of it.
It affected...
The steez.
If it affected the frontal lobe, the frontal lobe is partially responsible for decision-making. So he became more impulsive, I believe, too. So
exactly.
That's related to addiction and drinking. Yeah, but the question is, was it brain damage that changed his personality, or the fact that he had this traumatic experience? A spike went through my head. Oh my god. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. It was the brain damage, but you could say like, yeah, if I had a spike go through my head, I think I would get pretty angry as well. Yeah, but that's just crazy story. I mean, you look at that diagram. By all accounts, someone that had that injury should have died from it, but he survived, which is crazy. I think he ended up dying as a result of this. Like he died from a seizure, I think. Many years later, though, which is surprising. So in the end,
imagine hearing that. Like, oh yeah, did you hear about Phineas Gage, the guy who got a rake through the head? Yeah. You know how he died? He had a seizure many years later.
Exactly. Yeah. So in the end, the spike did end up winning. But like many years later.
He had the last laugh.
Yeah, exactly. The spike had the last laugh. So yeah, it's interesting. It's also said that when he went to the doctor afterwards, while he was talking to the doctor said that a piece of his brain just kind of fell out while they were chatting about his recklessness.
While they were chatting, like, excuse me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Piece of my brain. What were we talking about? Lemonade?
Exactly. Yeah. So the doctor's just like, okay. Imagine getting that house call, right? That would be crazy. So this is an interesting case, and this really.
Oh, wait, that would have been the best party trick ever. He just walks in. God. He's like, "Oh yeah, let me try." Punch. He takes a swig. He's like, "I think there's something wrong with the punch," and then he just spits out a piece of his brain.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but so this is an interesting case because this encapsulates your frontal lobe and its importance to the human body. This is, part of what helped scientists figure out what the frontal lobe did. This and other cases, they compiled the symptoms and they saw, okay, damage to the frontal lobe results in changes to personality and blah, blah, blah. So the frontal lobe is responsible for manifesting these things properly. So that's interesting. Very interesting case. I think the train company he was working with, the railroad company, they also fired him because they were like, yeah, you were being a complete idiot and you're just a hazard to have around, which is kind of sad. Like the guy's got a spike through his head. Like give him a break. But they were like, yeah, no, you just pretty much shot yourself with a giant railroad spike. Unfortunately, we can't have that kind of liability on our railroad tracks, so you're gonna have to leave. Yeah.
I mean, he hurt himself. He didn't hurt anyone else.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. The concern was probably, what if he, if he's that much of a muffin that he's able to just like look down the barrel of this spike. Like, what else is he gonna mess up? But yeah, so this is an interesting case. But yeah, it's pretty much a textbook example of frontal lobe damage. Not in the way that it happened, but in the symptoms that you got afterwards. Like, if you think of the frontal lobe, what it's responsible for. Like, if we hadn't told you what his symptoms were, if you just had to guess based on what we told you about the frontal lobe, you'd probably be like, okay, maybe their personality tanked, their decision making, they got more reckless, impulsive. That's pretty much what happened. So it's very demonstrative.
Check.
Yep. Yeah. So it showcases what happens. And I think it's probably the most famous case. Like, a lot of people know about this case, right? Like, this is probably, if you know of one case of brain damage, it's probably this. Or it's, like someone that you know, but it's that or this, like, of someone that you don't know. This is like one of the most famous cases of brain damage.
That's
Yeah.
at Freddy's.
Yeah, exactly.
Was that the bite of 87?
Was that the bite of 87? No, that was a railroad spike going through the head of Phineas Gage. Oh, okay. Anyways, I'll go to the next slide.
That's fine.
All right, can we go to
Yep.
cow disease?
Yep.
Cow disease?
Yep.
Cow disorder?
Yep.
Let's talk about cow people.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Boanthropy.
It's time for cow.
Hmm.
Boanthropy. Literally, you think you're a cow.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we went from, interesting case study where guy should have died, but actually something really interesting happened, to I think I'm cow. So, yeah, boanthropy. Literally, like, one of my favorite things ever.
Uh-huh.
So it's literally what I said. Think you're a cow. Like, the girl on the left, I don't think she's totally in tune with it. I think she's more making fun of the cow. The cow looks pretty offended.
The cow looks
She's
offended.
like, hey.
I think she's just a
Come on,
stock
man.
photo actor, you know? Like, I think that's how it is. Like, that's what she's doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cow is so angry. Like, look at him. He's got his mouth open. He's like
He's
yelling.
livid.
He's like, how
He's
dare
shocked.
you? He's like, how
That's
dare you?
appropriation.
Yeah, how dare you imitate me in my cowiness? I am a proud cow, and you're being so disrespectful. The cow is just livid. It's hilarious. Such a good picture.
The person on the right has just completely given up.
Yeah, they look like they're dissociating there.
Yeah, just like, anyone looking for the Minotaur?
Exactly. So what what kind of brain damage causes this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not actual, like, really brain damage. There's only like one case where that happens, and that's if you have syphilis, which, like, syphilis is pretty nasty. It makes your skin fall off and your body deteriorate. That can degrade your brain and just put you at kind of essentially make you dumber. So you are tricked into believing you are a cow. But it's usually just either plain old vanilla insanity or it's God, it's really hard to say because it's just are just they just 100% believe. Like, it's been suggested that hypnotism and, like, suggestion and auto-suggestion may cause it. But also just plain old psychosis can lead to it as well.
Could it be some sort of damage to an area of the brain that, like, is responsible for, like, self-identity or something?
I guess, you know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
that would be the frontal. That would be the frontal.
Yeah. Well, or maybe it's just because there are some psychological disorders that aren't actually a result of brain damage. Maybe just a neurotransmitter's gone awry. Maybe norepinephrine has done something. Right? It could just be a neurotransmitter. I don't know. So that's an interesting case.
But yeah, it's really
an issue.
It's awesome.
Yeah, that's interesting, like, disease or disorder or whatever. So, okay. Should I go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we got the most mad
yeah, this guy.
James McAvoy. I forgot his name for a second. This harsh.
Yeah.
So they changed it to this.
I think it's a bit of I think it's like a treadmill. I've heard it described as that of popular terminology for a sensitive subject. Like every 20 years or so, the common term that's like polite and standard to use for a condition becomes like offensive after, like, you know, a couple decades, and so then a new term comes about. So I guess we're just in that turning cycle of the first term being like, oh, outmoded, being like, oh, you shouldn't really call it that. But 20 years from now, saying dissociative identity disorder might be just as bad. So people might look back on this live stream and be like, how dare they? But we're just gonna say to them, this is what it was called at this time. So, what are we gonna do? Unless you can predict like the future and what it'll be called. But yeah, so dissociative identity disorder. I'm not sure how accurate was the movie.
Yeah, you just think that you are different people at different times.
Yeah.
In the movie, this guy has 20, right?
Yeah, 24. Yeah.
In real life, the highest was like 20.
Okay.
And Max and I looked at it before stream.
Oh yeah.
And it was like this artist lady.
Yeah.
You could probably Google it. This artist lady who had like a traumatic childhood, so she created different versions of like not even just of herself, like completely different people. You know, like she was a female. Some of her personalities were men. You know.
Yeah.
And that was like interesting because it was so removed from herself, and she still like took on that persona. You know.
So are most of these cases caused by trauma, or are they brain damage? Result from brain damage?
Yeah. So the main cause of DID believed to be severe and prolonged trauma experienced during childhood.
Okay. Yeah, so some of these disorders...
Usually trauma.
Yeah. So it's not even like brain damage in some situations. So this gets more into psychology than neuropsychology, I guess, but it's still interesting to look at. It's that stressful situations can affect the brain like so heavily, especially when they're very intense like situations. So yeah. Yeah. I remember there was some criticism that like this movie was like inaccurate in some way. I mean, well, there's one obvious way. I mean, he's the antagonist, and there's like one personality that's like this monster that like kills people and is like
super strong.
Yeah, and is super strong.
That doesn't work.
Yeah, and is like not even like I'm not sure. Was the beast or whatever supposed to be like a human?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dude, I don't know.
Yeah,
then he beat up Bruce Willis.
Exactly. Yeah,
he
Bruce Willis. Yeah, Bruce Willis is like, yeah, in the second movie. But yeah, so
beyond supernatural aspects, stuff like this is hard to make accurate movies about because everyone has a different experience with it.
Definitely. Yeah. Also, sometimes like for the movie,
hard to be accurate.
Yeah, for the sake of the plot, I guess, sometimes they embellish some things, but I don't know. Like, sometimes that can be damaging because then it leads to misconceptions if it's a popular movie like this. But, you know, it is what it is, right? But just but just keep in mind, if you're interested in dissociative identity disorder, like, and you want to like research it, that it's probably not going to be entirely similar to what the movie showed. Probably the basic aspect that it's a person that has multiple personalities, like that they can be at like different times. That is true, but different aspects from the movie are probably false. So yeah, keep that in mind. A lot of science has to deal with movie misconceptions. Especially like when there's a sci-fi movie and they don't do the science right, then scientists have to deal with misconceptions for years, and they get pissed about that. They say like, oh, no, that's not true, right? So it's a similar thing here, except with neurology and psychology instead of with like, you know, physics and astronomy. So, yeah. So yeah, should I go to the next slide?
Yeah, that's basically it for that.
Cool.
Yep. Then we get Capgras Syndrome, where you think that everyone around you is an imposter, right?
Yeah.
You have the delusion that, like, pretty much like anyone, like your friends, your family, anyone around you, you think that they have been replaced by an imposter.
One that you see.
Yeah.
So this is the result of brain damage, right?
Yes, it is. It's most commonly associated with Alzheimer's or dementia because they can affect your memory and to your sense of reality. But it occurs because, like, if you have a brain injury that causes like cerebral lesions on your brain, that can cause it, because if it occurs in the back of the right hemisphere, so like the occipital lobe around that area, that's where your brain processes facial recognition. So if that gets damaged, that's that part of your brain, the facial recognition gets it stops talking to the other parts of your brain. So that's where the confusion occurs, because they could like even have the same voice. Well, like they will have the same voice as your person. Like imagine like you see your mom, but you have Capgras syndrome. You'd think, even though you can see that she looks the exact same, that she sounds the exact same, your brain is not recognizing her as your mom, because that part of your brain has been damaged either by a disease or just by brain trauma.
So that's interesting.
That's basically what it is.
Yeah. And like he said, related to dementia and amnesia, but it's also related to paranoid schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Especially the.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. And it's right, like.
Yeah.
Let me get the statistic. Yeah, it is very, very.
You were saying something before stream about the difference between seeing them and hearing them.
So if you're like, again, example with your mom, if you have Capgras syndrome, you see your mom, you're like, this ain't my mom, you're an imposter, bring out my mom. And then that your mom just leaves and then calls you, and you hear her voice on your phone, you believe that is your mom. Because you're not seeing her, so the disconnect between the facial recognition and her voice isn't there, because all you have is her voice, so you believe that is your mom.
Yeah.
And that's been done. That exact experiment done. Someone with Capgras, their like father walked in and they were like, boy, you an imposter. And they left and just went into the other room and called them, and they were like, yo, dad, there was this imposter here, it was crazy. And then they walk back in the room, showing that they were on the phone, and they were like, oh, trick me.
Yeah.
Yeah, imposter.
Yeah. So that's really interesting, just how the brain, it specializes, and just because of how it behaves, there's like dysfunction isn't like complete, you know? It isn't something that makes you think everyone everywhere is an imposter all the time, because it only affects like your facial recognition and your like visual cortex. So if you were just calling someone, like just hearing someone, or imagine if you are only looking at someone from behind, does it also happen like where you think they're an imposter, or do you not think they're an imposter?
Maybe. 128 minutes, ladies and gents. We hit 128
minutes. Interesting.
I don't know if you look at the back.
Yeah.
What it does.
Yeah.
Depend if it was just or if it was just like facial recognition.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So, but in general, it's really interesting how the brain works, because, you know, like you would think, if you think everyone is an imposter, you would think, oh, there's no difference between calling on the phone and actually seeing them. But yet there is. So, yeah. So that's it from me. Should I move on to final thoughts?
Yeah, let's do the final thoughts.
So that was a very interesting episode, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it. And I enjoyed being here. It was very interesting and informative. I don't know as much about the brain as other subjects. I'm more of a physics astronomy guy, but thank you, Sebastian and Camilla. Very informative. Um, yeah. So
I learned some things too.
yeah,
Really fun.
yeah. I just find it so interesting how the brain networks, like how certain like pathways, like certain damage, can result in very specific problems, like very specific disorders. It's just so cool because you would think brain damage would just result in general like not functioning as well. You would just think, oh, the brain is how you think. Okay, brain damage just means that you won't be able to think as well, which certain types of brain damage, yes, but other types of brain damage are highly specific. And like someone with aphasia, for instance, they might still like they could be like the world's leading like scientist in their field, right? And then they might have a stroke and have aphasia, and they are still like just as smart. Like you read their papers have not changed at all. The difference is that they just cannot vocalize, so they really like they can't show up to any press conferences or anything, but you read their paper and it's still brilliant. So it's really fascinating how the brain works like that.
So in all of neuroscience is so interesting because there's so much we still don't know about it,
Hmm.
and there's so much that we still have to figure out.
Yeah.
So every new like news article or breakthrough is so interesting because it's so complicated.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
My
So
favorites.
I would like to thank you both for being here. This was a
Yep.
great episode. Yeah. I would like to thank you, Camilla, because I think we gave you kind of short notice, right? What was it, like Friday? We asked you to come on the stream.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like
thank
third.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for coming on the stream.
I love
Yeah, it's always fun to have
it
you
was
here.
really
Yeah, you can come on again anytime, as we said last time. So yeah, it's been fun to have you here, and I would like to thank you, Sebastian, for being my co-host as always.
Yep.
Yep, always good to have you on the show. So yeah, that's it. That's it for me. Okay. Yeah. Goodbye, everyone. I'll end the stream now.
Bye bye.
Okay. See you all next time.